Riffical Records presents the East-West Vinyl Analysis with your hosts Mark Anthony Kay and Ken Keenan. Greetings, friends, and welcome to episode 12 of the East-West Vinyl Analysis. Yes, it has been a month. My bad, of course, because I have been very busy working on the Project Gemini album, and we're nearing the dawn of the pre-order. So things will obviously loosen up for me a little bit, but enough about me and my records. We're talking about different kinds of records today. We're talking about live albums today is the topic, and as you can see, I am joined with my partner in crime, Mr. Ken Keenan from San Francisco. And we have a third person today as well, and that is from the far, far reaches of the mother country of England. We have Mr. David Donnelly with us today from the Venus Reaction and Glenn Matlock and the Philistines. So, hello, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Very well.
Thank you.
A lovely sunny day in England.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's kind of rare, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been indoors rehearsing all day though, so I haven't been out.
Huh. So how about you, Mr. Keenan? How's things in your neck of the woods?
Everything's good over here. Actually, cooler weather now, so we're about mid-70s today. So it's a little bit overcast, but it's fine. All good.
No, that's good. It's good to hear. Over here in Canada, we are approaching autumn and time to pull out the jackets a bit. You know, I'm still wearing the shorts outside. I'm hard to give those up yet, but the jacket's out, you know, now, and it's getting a bit cooler, but we're hoping for a few more weeks of decent weather. Now, like I said earlier, today's topic, we're going to be talking about live albums. Now, let me preface this a little bit by saying that for me personally, and I'm going to go around to each of you and get your opinions on this as well, but for me, growing up, I really loved live albums. I know some people frown on live albums. Some people detest live albums. Some people don't even bother with live albums. But me, I've always loved them. And as a musician myself, I always found live albums extremely important in my love of music, because I also found that if the live albums were good for the band, that gave me much more respect for the band overall. Because as I learned more about the music business and more about recording, I started to realize that lots of bands can make themselves sound good in the studio, but not many bands can make themselves sound good live. And if you're a good live band, that to me is a really important thing. So I've always taken that as something very important in a band's career. So if they release a live album, if it's good, it makes them that much more higher in my opinion of them. What about you guys? What are your opinions? Ken, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, does it give me a better opinion of them? I've had albums where I bought a live album and it sounded great, but you go to their concert and it doesn't sound too darn good. So, yeah, to a degree, I don't know. It depends on the performance and if I've seen them live. If I enjoy the band enough, I'll just get the live album and see how they sound live. As an example, maybe Rush or something like that. That would have been a good one to get. Actually, I started with Rush and then I got their live album. So I think I got their live album before I even saw them, and I've seen them a number of times. So yeah, it all depends, I guess, how you're getting into the band and so on. But yeah, live albums are cool. I mean, especially if you get a little bit different versions of things, or something changes up, or sometimes it's for the better, as we've seen in the past. Certain groups sound better live than otherwise.
True. What about you, David?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been into them, I have to say, because I just find that, I'm a headphones listener. So when I get the studio album, I listen to all the instruments going on and what have you. And I love shutting my eyes, sticking the headphones on, and on a live album. Sometimes there's just a bit more crackle, a little bit more sort of oomph with things. And sometimes, like you say, they change things up. The first time I heard the sort of fast version, if you like, of "We Will Rock You" by Queen was Queen Live Killers. you know, and that's not one of my choices, but I've got it on the red and green vinyl. But the beginning of that is the crack from that. When that kicks off, it's amazing, and it's not the usual We Will Rock You with the, you know, the clapping hand thing. It's like a 4/4, pretty fast, you know, rocking position. And so things like that are amazing. So I do find that you get a bit of extra oomph sometimes with songs that maybe didn't. And there are certain bands where I just listen to the live stuff because their studio stuff is maybe a bit, you know, programmed or electronic or something, but live they have a real drummer and a real bass player or something, you know. Yeah. So yeah, I'm up with live albums, you know. It's just different, you know.
It's all great points. So yeah, so obviously we all like them and respect them and collect them. So let's go and see what we picked from our own respective collections. As I guess well, for me personally, I guess I picked two that to me are my favorites for sure. Probably up there like my top 5 for sure of live albums, and I'll get into more details about why when I get to them. But let's start off with our guest today and let him go out with the first selection today. So go ahead, David. You can go first.
Okie dokie. Well, I think Ken will like this particularly. Released in November '75. I was aged 8 in 1975. I saw an ad for it in the magazine. Desperately wanted it. It was recorded on the 21st of December 1973 at the Rainbow, which is in Finsbury Park in London, and it is this one.
Oh, the Suite.
Strung Up Suite, and I actually wanted to bring the English edition, but because I'm sort of away from home at the moment, I grabbed what I thought was the English edition. This is actually the German one, but it's pretty much the same outlay. It's got the full sleeve, where you get them looking like they're controlling their own puppets. Right. And inside, there's that. Is that coming through okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strung up.
Big thing on this is that the German edition, for some reason, side 1 is side 2, and side 2 is side 1 on this. Because they kicked off the concert with Hellraiser. The stripper, David Rose is the stripper, and goes into Hellraiser. And the German one is a black label, a black RCA. Yeah. So that's pretty nice. But what I thought, this is a recommendation for you, Ken, because again, we were talking about a bit more extra crackle. Now, I really didn't like the Sweets hit singles. Really, I was never really a fan of Ballroom Blitz, and certainly not things like Little Willie and Wigwam Bam and stuff. They were silly. But their album tracks were like Deep Purple. You know, they really wanted to be Deep Purple, and so live they're really heavy. And there's a company it's Sony. I mean, it's through Sony, and they've put out this reissue which looks pretty much exactly the same, but they've added extra tracks from the concert. You've got Teenage Rampage on there and Ballroom Blitz, Blockbuster. That's the extras which weren't on the original, and the inside is similar, but on the other side you've got this
extra picture there. Yeah,
extra pictures. But what's really nice is you didn't get inner sleeves with the original, and on here you've got the poster for the gig. You've got a shot from the gig. This is the advert that I saw in one of my sort of 8-year-old Davy magazines. I think it was called Look In. And the trouble is, my pocket money, or allowance as you'd call it, probably, was about your equivalent of 80 cents or something, back in 1975, and there was no way I was going to be able to buy a double vinyl album. I had to wait for Christmas, and they've done a fantastic job on this, and it's really beautiful. It's a purple vinyl. It's a slight sort of glittery purple vinyl with picture label, and yeah, I mean, I loved it. Sweet were a massive band for me. I thought Andy Scott was my sort of pre-punk rock guitar hero, and Mick Tucker was the guy that Mick Tucker was the drumming hero for me, and he does a drum solo on Strung Up, where even back in 1973 he did a drum solo with himself. They had a massive cinema screen behind him, and he would play they would show him playing the drums, and then he would answer that live.
cool.
And it's amazing. I actually went to his funeral, Mick Tucker's funeral, when he died.
Really?
I never met him, but I wanted to pay my respects, and I sent someone an email and asked if it was okay if I went along, and it was good. And Andy Scott and Steve Priest were there as well, but obviously it's one of those moments where you can't really go up to someone and go, "Can I have a picture with you?"
No.
But I did shake their hands and say that I was a big fan, and I was, sorry about this, But yeah, Strung Up Sweet, an absolute belter, I think. So that's my first pick, and I definitely recommend that purple vinyl extended edition. It's remastered, restored as they call it, because there were some clicking and faults on the original. It's fantastic, and also it's strange in that it's two sides live, and there's a second. Sides 3 and 4 are studio cuts. From things like Desolation Boulevard, Sweet Fanny Adams, etc. And so it's a really good value for money thing, and you can still get it. You can still pick it up pretty cheap,
I think I will.
Right.
How's the sound of it? It sounds pretty good.
It's done great. I mean, obviously, me and Mark have got studios. We do mastering and stuff for our own thing, so our ears are pretty trained to what they've done, and whoever did it did a fantastic job. I looked at the dead wax, I looked at everything, but I can't see who mastered it. But whoever did it really brought out the thump in it and stopped any sort of hiss and all that sort of stuff. It's a fantastic sounding album, and very, very heavy indeed.
Wow.
So it seems like you have a new addition to your list there, Ken.
Yeah, I think I might go out and get it today.
This is what I love about your podcast. I said to Mark, well, after watching these 12 or 11 podcasts and stuff, the amount of money you two have cost me, it pisses me off.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sorry.
that's a really great selection, though, David. I mean, I was, to be honest, I wasn't even aware of this release. So now, obviously, it's going to be something on my album list now too. Because after I spoke to you about Desolation Boulevard or Avenue or whatever it's called there, when we were speaking once on Skype, I went out and I listened to the whole thing on YouTube. I found it and checked it out, and it's now on my list to pick up on vinyl too. So again, it works both ways, right? So
it's a real peach. It's really good, really good.
What year was that originally? When it came out? What was
it? It came out November 1975.
70. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. You said 75. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
It's a very, very excellent selection. So now, how about we go over to our friend in San Francisco for his first pick?
All right. My first pick. Actually, I don't think I ever had the vinyl until recently. But I heard it. I mean, CD, that sort of thing. But I didn't have the vinyl. I remember a person that, when I used to live in Denver, lived across the street, and he showed me some albums that I like. Who the hell what are you showing me, man? He showed me some. Well, he actually showed me Kiss's first album, and I blew that one off too. Believe it or not, I said, clowns don't play music, and then and he showed me like ZZ Top Fandango. I'm like, what is that? Because I was listening to, at that time, the Carpenters and Linda Ronstadt and stuff like that. So he showed me this one too, I remember. But he didn't play it, all of them. He didn't play any of them for me. This one, it said, the title was Made in Japan. And I was like, what the hell is that? Was this album made in Japan? Or, what was it? I was a kid. I didn't know what the hell was going on. So, so it was this album, but then years later, but at that time when this came out, Smoke on the Water was a huge song on the radio in the U.S., and I think it went to number 5, the actual song. And I know I love that song. I didn't know who it was, but I loved the song because I remember hearing it on the radio all the time. But I just didn't know who it was. So this is obviously Deep Purple, made in Japan, released. In the U.S. it was released in '73. April 73. In the UK, it was 72, December 72. This album, and this album might be the one that I mean, lots of times we say, Kiss Alive was one of the ones that really made, live albums popular. I think this one may have been the one. Because this is a couple years earlier, that really started the live album, and this did very well.
Is that a purple vinyl one? Because I know there is a purple.
There's a new. Well, they just released purple vinyl of a number of their albums, including this one. They did. I did get the Machine Head on purple vinyl.
Right.
Yeah, but this one is actually an original U.S. promo copy from the time period. So, and it has the opening like see this here, kind of the rising sun kind of thing, and has you can see the pictures a little bit in there and stuff like that. But and some minor information. The back cover, another shot live, and the songs. I mean, it's not long songs, obviously, because they had a lot. They're long songs. I mean, one of them was, I think, I want to say 20 minutes. The last one. On it. But let me pull out one of the vinyls here, and actually.
While you're doing that, Ken, I'll just say that I saw a Mick Tucker interview when he said that "Sweet Set Me Free" was basically based on Deep Purple's "Is it Flight of the Rat?"
Yeah. I think that's it. Flight of the Rat. Yeah, that's the one.
He said they were trying to do something like that. So it's funny.
Well, that's interesting.
My choice was like based on your next choice.
Yeah, I love that song. That song is great. I mean, I love that song. So here's that side 1 and side looks like 4 here. And this is a white label.
Nice.
Promo.
Oh, Child in Time, what a track. What a vocal.
Oh, Child in Time is just a fantastic song. Yeah. And I don't know who, I'm trying to remember who mastered this. Does it say on this one? I can't. It's hard to see. I don't have enough good light here. No, I don't think it shows on here. It might say inside. But, with songs, we know Space Truckin'. Side 4 is 20 minutes, and it's one song. Okay, this whole side is one song, Space Truckin', at 20 minutes, and it's a great song. And side 1 was Highway Star and Child in Time. Child in Time, we're coming in at 12 minutes and 19 seconds. So let me see here. I was going to tell you guys how well this thing did. It obviously did, sold a lot of records. U.S. it hit number 6 on the 200 U.S. Billboard 200. U.K. it hit number 16, went to 16, and I see Canada here, number 1. Number 1 album in Canada. So those Canadians were pretty smart out there.
Yeah,
of course.
So, I'm not gonna bring out the other one, but the other songs like "Strange Kind of Woman,"
"Smoke on the Water."
Yeah, and these were recorded in Osaka and Tokyo. I think it was over a 3 day period. There are reissues, yes, lots of reissues, remastered, extended editions, and stuff like that I haven't looked into yet, but I probably will, because you can't go wrong with it.
I'm sure. I think there's footage as well, footage of that gig in a Deep Purple documentary that I was watching.
Oh, really?
I'm sure there's footage from that. Yeah.
Right. So that's a great one to get. I mean, if you like any Deep Purple, that's the best lineup, in my opinion. That was it Mark II? The best lineup Deep Purple ever had.
It's funny that when you brought that up, I kind of had a smile on my face, because I'm not sure if you remember, I think I've said it in a couple of stories before, that album is so firmly burned in my brain, because when I went on tour with one of my bands, we played a festival in the Azores Islands, and we stayed in this house. I think I told this story before, but I'll just make it quick. We stayed in this house that we were given, the band, to stay in, and it had nothing but Portuguese records in there, like nothing but. And then I was going through and looking for something to listen to. He had 2 albums of English singing in it. One was Kiss Rock and Roll Over, and the other one was Deep Purple, Made in Japan. So for the week that we were there, every day that record got played about 6 times a day in the house, because there was nothing else really English to listen to in there. So I knew that record backwards and forwards, so much to the point that when I came back to Canada after, I didn't buy that album for years, because I could probably recite it to you just from my own memory, that whole record top to bottom. And finally now I've gotten the double CD reissues and oldie stuff. So I finally got it now. But for the longest time, I just didn't even want to see that album, because I heard it so long when I was in that place. I was like, I couldn't, every time I even heard Smoke on the Water on the radio, I'd switched it off, because I was like, oh no, it started giving me like flashbacks of Portugal, right? So, but it is a great record. And you know what? I kind of have to agree that it might possibly be the record prior to a Kiss Alive that could be said to be the one that started the whole live album phenomenon, I think.
Yeah.
So,
and before we go on to the next one, I'll just give you my little Smoke on the Water story. Mark knows that apart from being a musician, I'm also a producer, and I was producing the debut album by this Swiss band called Dax and Roxanne. This is last year. And we went over to Switzerland, and because they were in the Montreux Rock Festival, and I wanted to have a listen to the songs live. And we were walking down to the venue, and the guy that was with us pointed out the hotel that was the hotel that burned to
the ground. Yeah.
And they rebuilt it, but that is the hotel that basically Smoke on the, and it's right by the water, and it is looking over there, and you think, God, that's it. That is the water that had Smoke on it.
That was the inspiration for the great song. Another thing, maybe it's another reason I picked this album is tonight I'm going to see Deep Purple live. So,
oh wow!
Yeah. Oh, nice. With Judas Priest, right?
Yeah. Julian and I are going to Judas Priest and Deep Purple tonight. So
say hi to Julian for me.
I will. I'll let him know. So.
Good man. He's a good guy.
Yep.
It's going to be a great show. Yeah, I think you're going to really enjoy it, Ken. Judas Priest are like on fire now. So
I've never seen Judas Priest. I saw Deep Purple back when they did their Mark II, reunion back in the early '80s.
Perfect Strangers.
Perfect Strangers tour. That's the one I saw.
Yeah. Knocking on the
cool.
back and all that.
Knocking on your back door. Yeah.
I think you're gonna really dig it. So that's another fantastic pick. Now I'll go with my first selection.
Hey.
Okay, so it's not going to be something that's going to be like a big surprise. Oh my God, I can't believe that he picked this, because being a Canadian, I think you can kind of get the idea of where I'm going to be going here with this. Yeah. But I'm going to just say this. This album is the album that made me realize the importance of live albums, made me realize how important it is to be a good live band when you make your own band. Because when I first put the headphones on and listened to this record, I was literally whisked away to the venue where this was recorded. I literally felt when I closed my eyes that I was in there, because I had it so loud on my headphones when I was listening to this. It literally felt like I was sitting in there. This to me, and I'll always go on record to say this is probably one of the best recorded live albums that I've heard. And it's not because it sounds polished. It sounds really raw. You can hear people chit-chatting in there. You can almost smell the marijuana smoke in the air from it. And it really gives me the vibe of Massey Hall, because I've been there to see a few things before. So, of course, now that I've said that, I got to show you that it can only be one thing, and that's All the World's a Stage.
Of course.
By Rush. Now,
I'd be disappointed if it wasn't.
Yeah.
Now this record for me represents everything that a live album should be. I mean, it's the full show, okay? And I know this for a fact because I have a few soundboard cassettes that I found over the years from this tour and from this actual same show, because I got on this little fad a long time ago because I started getting really annoyed with bands saying that we have this live album coming out, check it out. and I'd compare it with live shows from that tour and find out that it's not nothing like what they were playing on tour. So it was obviously all jiggered in the studio. And I started getting really pissed off with this and saying, you know what? I want to find out which of these records are actually live or which of it is actual bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's one thing that really blew the air out of my balloon was when I started discovering all this stuff about Alive, for example, how Peter Criss's drums and his vocals are the only thing that's live on that record. And I was like that really knocked me for a loop when I found that out, you know. But when I found out that on this record, you know, Neil Peart broke his snare at the end of Lakeside Park, and apparently you can hear that.
Yeah.
On Working Man, Alex Lifeson blew a string. You can hear it on here when you can literally hear the guitar like make this really weird noise on it, and they kept it in there, you know. And I'm sure they even said themselves too that there were one or two little things that they had to patch for whatever technical reason, right? Yeah. But for the most part, it is very, very true to form. And like I said, I have a lot of these stuff on cassette, and this is a huge like triple rifled version. And it's funny because you can also get this on like a non-gatefold, but all these pictures are on the sleeves instead. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, on the inside, right? So they kind of they didn't rip off the fans, so to speak. If it wasn't a gatefold version, they would make sure that all these images and all this stuff would be on the sleeve. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is obviously, I'm pretty sure it's a Canadian pressing. Yeah, this is an early one because this is done with Polydor for Mercury. So this is pre the re-release on Anthem. And let me see here. Yeah, so this is those great versions where you have side 3 and or it is side 3 and side 4. It isn't one of those ones where it's like side 1 and side 4. This is the actual. So this is side 3.
And you know why and Mark, you know why they do those staggering kind of side 1 and side 4 kind of.
It's because of those record players, right?
Yeah, where you used to drop, right, and you just you let them both drop, and then you just flip them over, put them on the thing, and let them drop again one at a time.
So this has 2112 on it, and Lakeside Park on it, and you know I was always searching for these early versions of it because you know they've always had some kind of a better tonality to it, and this one here, the Dead Wax, has the infamous JAMF stamp, which is just another mastering facility here in Toronto, which that facility turned into the Lacquer Channel, right?
Oh, okay.
And that place has George Graves and all those guys, and George Graves done Farewell to Kings, and he's done Peter Gabriel 1, and he's done all those other ones, and he actually mastered my last band's last EP, so it was great talking to him. Talking about all kinds of stories about Rush and Geddy and their love of marijuana and stuff like that in the studio. So it was interesting talking to him about this stuff, how he had to literally like wave smoke in there when he was mixing stuff or whatever, working with them. So, but just to let you know too, this record, a little bit of a note about it, All the World to Stage was Rush's first U.S. top 40 charting album, went gold alongside Farewell to Kings and 2112 on November 16th, 1977. It was certified platinum in the U.S. in 1981 after the release of Moving Pictures. And in Canada, gold certification of this record came on December 1st, 1976, and then platinum on August 1st, 1978. So it is a selling record. Obviously, it did more numbers as some of the bigger records came out later on. So once they release certain records, as usual, the catalog, gets reinvigorated and stuff starts reselling again. So that was my first pick really here. And what I really love though is that for a long time on CD, when you would get this, they would omit What You Doing, the last song on the album. And it was never on there. Now, when they did the remasters in 1997, they re-included that back in so you get the full proper show again. But the vinyl, you'd always get the full show. So that's my first pick. And like I said before, this to me is easily in my top 5. And I highly recommend. I'm sure you guys probably have it or have heard it for sure. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had the original vinyl way back, and then got rid of. Haven't. That's one of the ones I haven't restocked yet um, on vinyl. But I do have the remastered edition of it on CD. But yeah, I always loved that album. You know what, Mark? I knew you were going to pick that. I said he's going to pick that.
It was either going to be that or Exit Stage Left, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
you know what though? The funny thing is though, I like Exit Stage Left, but I've never really enjoyed it as much because I found that Terry Brown mixed the audience way too low. You would never even know there's an audience on that recording until the song is done. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. But then again, you get things like Kiss Alive 2, where the audience is just almost
It's too high. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shut up.
It's too high.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's some people like that, some people don't like that. Me personally, I like to have a bit of audience so I can feel like I'm there, just the right amount of it, but not too much like a live tour where your ears are bleeding from the screaming after a while, right?
Yeah.
So that's my pick. So let's go back to our friend in England for his next selection.
Righty-ho. Well, my next selection it's a bit weird because it's not been chosen because it's musically fantastic, as in well played or this or that. It's because of the atmosphere of it, and it made such an impact on me. And it's because of the historical value and all that sort of stuff. It began life as a bootleg, and it's basically it's recorded 14th of January 1978, and it was the very, very last gig by the Sex Pistols. Now, I'm going to apologise to Glenn Matlock, although I'm sure he's not watching that. But next time I see him, this could be trouble because it's not a Glenn Matlock era. It's the last gig with Sid Vicious on it. And I first came across it at a record fair when I was young. Again, I think I was 14 when I found it, and it was part of a box set. And it was this box set, Sex Pistols File, and it was just a black box like that with the albums just in white sleeves on there, and each album had a picture label, but it was in San Francisco. And the band were just imploding. I mean, and basically it's the sound of a band breaking up, and I just find it amazing. Like to put the headphones on, and the audience at the time, half the audience just wanted to throw stuff at them and get hold of them and kill them. They hated them, absolutely hated them. And then half the audience were like, San Francisco punks. It was Winterland, obviously, which is now, as you probably know, Ken, when I was on tour, I wanted to go and visit Winterland, and it's now Winterland Apartments, isn't it?
I think, I don't know what they built there. As apartments now? Okay.
They've got pictures in the reception, and one of them is the Pistols. But the album that I'm actually talking about today is one of those loophole albums where you can buy it off Amazon. It's but it's not official. It's through a label called New Star, and it's been sort of that box set one. I reckon was a cassette off the radio broadcast put onto vinyl because it's very tinny. There's a lot of surface noise, all that sort of stuff. But in 2016, this came out, and it's just called the Winterland Concert, and it's really been done well. It's really been done well. It's been remastered. It's probably someone like me and Mark who probably put it into their own studio and worked on it. Maybe there's no credits on it because it is kind of bootleggy, as it were. But the quality is incredible, and there's a lot of bullshit about Sid never played. They turned his amp off. They only turned his amp off. At the Dallas gig, the Dallas Longhorns ballroom gig, where he was so wasted they had to just turn him off. But this one everyone's firing on all cylinders, but it's partly because they're just hating the whole thing. Now this album actually includes something that only surfaced in 2016, which is the sound check.
Oh, nice. Really?
And that was a guy that worked for KSAN.
I remember the radio station, yeah.
And what this broadcast is from. But he was testing it by sticking a cassette in during the sound check. And so you get, pretty vacant problems, no feelings. And that's amazing because you hear them talking to each other and you can tell by the sound. I mean, like they're shouting at people like the monitors are too loud and I can't hear this, and turn him down, and all this. Really amazing. Nothing particularly special about the labels on there. It's good old black vinyl. It's pretty heavy, so I think it's 180 gram. I don't know, But I was so pleased with it because it's been on bootleg, it's been on CD, it's been on, and they've all been very tinny and a bit crackly and a bit sort of, like it's from a cassette and someone's tried to remaster a cassette. I think that somehow this one was taken from a master because it's really good. And that sound check that I was telling you about, there's a single that came out called Hello Winterland.
Nice.
Right.
And it's just an extra bootleg single that is basically the sound check, and that's good. And then a little bit pointless, someone put out a same sort of thing, and it's called Winterland Goodbye, and that's basically just that's just well, yeah, it's just three tracks off the album. But what I love is, there's times where there's terrible playing. There's, Steve Jones's guitar cuts out at one point. You can hear him plugging the next one in. It's crackling. You can hear. It's not quite as bad as Iggy Pop and the Stooges' Metallic KO, where you can actually hear things hitting the guitars, like bottles and stuff. But you can hear the crackle of a crowd that is really, really sort of, they're aware that this band is in trouble and they're trying to kick them while they're down, sort of thing, And I just find it amazing. And there is a DVD of it now. Maybe that's where the soundtrack came from, because that is an official one. It came out in 1996 when they reformed. I did speak to their sound engineer, John Tiberi. He came to a gig that I was doing, and I had a really good chat to him, and he said Winterland was an absolute fucking nightmare. He said it was just incredible. Everyone wanted to just attack them, and Rotten had had enough, and it was just. But that's what you hear on the record, and I just find it one of the most exciting live albums I've ever heard. Even though some of the playing's terrible, but that's the beauty of it. It's just a band imploding, basically. So that's my second choice.
Very nice, and a lot of interesting history behind it. I like the fact that you have the kind of original state of it from the box there, and then now you have sort of the nicely done reissue of it, and it looks good. I mean, the labels are kind of cool. They kind of stuck with the original pink and yellow sort of colorization, like they did for the Nevermind the Bollocks record there, right? And I'm not the biggest Sex Pistols fan, but I do respect them a lot. I do have the classic albums making of Nevermind the Bollocks, and I really like that. I thought it was a really interesting segment. So the Sex Pistols are an important point in music history, I think. I mean, without them, a lot of bands wouldn't have formed. You wouldn't have had the Nirvanas and stuff like that without, Sex Pistols, right?
And there's some great Glenn Matlock era bootlegs, from the 100 Club and from Burton-on-Trent and all that. And Glenn obviously was is a great bass player. And obviously I tell you that from personal experience, being in a band with him. But it's just I didn't choose one of those because it's not really about that. It's just the excitement of a live album, and that is it's a band breaking up, and obviously Glenn co-wrote 10 out of the 12 songs on Nevermind the Bollocks, so he's represented as a writer there. But it's just that Winterland album. You can just hear what's going on. It's amazing. What's going on internally, and they pretty much walked off stage and broke up. And the very last thing Johnny Rotten says on No Fun, at the end of No Fun, where they grind to a halt. There's a bit of feedback, and he just says, "Ever get the feeling you've been cheated? Good night." And they were just fed up with it all. It just got too crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why Glenn left in the end, because personality-wise, they really, all four of them didn't really get on.
Yeah.
I mean, they're right now because they've got the history. They're a bit like army buddies. They're a bit like army.
Yeah.
It's like they or a football team or a soccer team. It's like they may not get on very well, but they'll still pass the ball to each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense. So I mean, again, great stuff, and again, something that I guess a serious collector piece for all Sex Pistols fan. What about you, Ken? Are you a Sex Pistols guy?
No, I don't have any Sex Pistols stuff. I mean, I'm aware of the music and their influence, and so I remember when they came out, and but so I have respect for what they did.
Well, I think what the problem is sometimes with the Pistols is because everyone uses the word punk and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But never mind the Bollocks is a fantastic album, a rock album, and I think knowing what you like, Ken,
Yeah.
I'd give it.
I probably should do it. Yeah.
The production on it by Chris Thomas and Bill Price is amazing. You know, they've got multiple layers of guitars, and it's just a thumping good rock album. I don't think it's very punk at all. I think that was when people say punk, particularly in America, they think of Offspring and Rancid and all that. It's nowhere near that. It's just all the songs are pretty much mid-tempo, but it's got a great fat guitar sound, and it's produced brilliantly. And if you can just forget, in your case, Ken, particularly say, forget who's playing it, just listen to Pretty Vacant on the headphones, and you'll just hear a 3.5-minute thumping rock song.
Right. I will give it a chance. I'll do it.
Very good.
I probably like it too.
Let's go over to our friend on the West Coast, Mr. Keenan, for your second pick.
Okay, my second pick is. I'm not gonna say it's one of the greatest live albums or anything like that, but it's just important to me. Important to me as far as getting into a band. I know it's not the best recording. It may not be all officially live or not, but what got me into the band, and so it's Kiss Alive too. We mentioned it with the loud audience, and I don't prefer the loud audience. It's up too high in my opinion, but
I love it too. I really do.
Yeah. So this is what got me into the band, or the first album I bought was Kiss Alive too. Even though on this album they have, of course, side 4 was studio tracks. Not studio, I wouldn't call it studio because they didn't record it in a studio, but they did it, I think, in like a rehearsal kind of stage kind of thing, recordings, and then a couple of songs that they did otherwise, like Tomorrow Tonight, which is something they never played live, and
just a sound check,
and Hard Luck Woman, another one that
that's on the studio side, isn't it?
Well, no, it's actually they made it as a live song, but it wasn't officially live, wasn't really live, though they pumped in the audience for it, So this was came out in '77, October 14th, '77. The back. Classic, yes, classic. And I told the story before on the other podcast about I remember riding my bike down to with a friend to it was it's called Bill's Drugs. It's a drugstore, and they had some records in there. It wasn't a record store, but they always sold records, and that's what I picked up and brought it home, and I immediately came in the front door and went to my mom. I'm like, look at that guy, look at this, and she just like, she didn't care. She really didn't care. She was all cool about it. So I do like it. I mean, when I first listened to this album, the deal was I didn't know who Gene Simmons was. I didn't know who Paul Stanley was. I didn't know the guys in the band. I didn't know who was who. I didn't know who was singing what. I mean, I figured it out from the insert, which is in here. Of course, it came with the insert. Oops, let's do this here. The insert and the pictures, and that's how I know. Okay, well, that guy's Gene Simmons. This guy's Paul Stanley, and so on. Then I look at the song titles. Okay, who wrote this song? Okay, Gene Simmons wrote this. So that's Gene Simmons. All right, that's who that guy is. All right, that's how I figured that stuff out originally. It came with that, and it came with the tattoos, that sort of thing, which is always cool. They gave you extra stuff in it. And then this one is actually
you've got it. I've always wanted that one. what you're about to
this
do.
this one I bought later on. It was early '80s, mid '80s. I would say mid '80s. There was a store called the Record Exchange here, and they sold imported records. So we were in there, and they had a bunch of Kiss records, and they had this is the oops,
Pie. Yeah, the Pie edition.
Pie red vinyl edition. And I yeah, there you go, Mark. I got I have all the red editions of all the ones that Pie put out. So I finally got.
I'm still missing some, but I have that one.
Yeah.
I don't have any. I have all Kiss albums, but I don't have the red ones.
Yeah, this one is, and yeah, I mean, I bought it in the store. This is the same one that I bought back then. This is the actual one. So I kept that one. This wasn't one I returned or traded in for compact discs when the compact disc came out and all that stuff. So it's more of a special kind of thing for me. And then the big deal was this centerfold here is just, it's like, holy crap. What is going on? This is the huge explosions and fire, and it's like, man, I got to go see that, kind of thing. So I didn't get to see them until 2 years later in 1979 on the Dynasty tour, which was a great, it was a great first show for me to see them. So the original lineup back then. So
I think that inside the gatefold is probably more iconic than the album cover itself. I think more people who buy this and who are Kiss fans will probably take that picture and say that to them is the thing that they remember the most from it, and probably the thing that they looked at the most when they got this record.
And when you're playing the record and you're playing it, you have headphones on or whatever, you have it, you fold it open, you're just staring at it thinking like, wow, what is this concert like? And you can hear this, they have the explosions on the audio of the show too. It's like, whoa, what happened there?
Didn't the band say? I'm sure I've heard someone say recently that that photo from the gatefold was they just set everything on. Like at no point in the show,
you're right.
The show did that gatefold picture.
They just set everything on at once. Because they didn't shoot those all at the same time on stage normally, right? But they just turn it all on, take pictures, right? That's what they did.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because, even though it's not a moment in the actual concert, I don't think anybody really cared when they bought the record and they saw that. They were probably just like so mesmerized by the photo that to them was more important. And that's very smart of them, to do that, because rather than to make it an authentic live shot, they made a shot that they knew people would be so mesmerized by, and it worked. That's what it did, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like World War III was going on in the centerfold,
Yeah, and I have to agree. It's a great record.
I think it's a picture of how a Kiss concert feels rather than what it you look at it and you think, because I've seen them, obviously, we've all seen them live.
Sure.
And that kind of sums up how it feels rather than what actually happens. It's huge.
You're right, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So that's a sentimental favorite. So that's the record. I didn't say, I said 77 came out. I guess I might as well tell you real quick before I switch back over to you, Mark. Canada peak position was number 5. UK only 60. Wow.
Yeah, well,
with
funny relationship with Kiss. I literally don't have any Kiss fans as friends in the UK. I have a few Facebook friends that are from the UK, and there's one girl that I occasionally see in Norwich where I live, and she's actually got a Kiss tattoo.
Really?
So that's pretty cool. But we're few and far between in terms of meeting people and hanging out and stuff. It's that's why I watch all the
podcasts.
Podcasts. Like Kiss Back and all the others.
Yeah, it went to number 7 here in the U.S. Stayed on for 33 weeks. I guess they released 2 singles: "Shout It Out Loud" and "Rocket Ride."
Yeah.
But "Shout Out Loud," that was another attempt to try to make a hit out of that. After it I think they released it also on Destroyer as a single at some point, third or fourth single, I don't know. But so yeah, they tried again, but it didn't. It only peaked at 54 in the U.S. on the Rocket Ride did better though.
Yeah, I'm not
39 on in the U.S.
I must say, Rocket Ride is my, you got to be careful when you're talking to Kiss fans. So I'm not going to say it is the best Ace Frehley solo ever. In my opinion, I like it.
It's a great solo.
It's an incredible solo.
It's a great song, actually.
In my opinion, that's great.
Yeah, you've got to preface everything when you're talking about Kiss with, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I do that all the time.
Otherwise, it's a case of light the blue touch paper and run away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know me. I mean, I'm a big Kiss guy too, and I have to say that it's definitely a great record. Not my favorite one from them as far as a live record, but it's a great album nonetheless, and a great pick. And like you said, the main reason for picking it is not so much the performance and stuff; it's the impact that it had and the memories behind it is the main reason for it.
Yeah, it was sentimental. Mm-hmm.
Now, but with my second pick now, it's pretty much the same thing, because this album is an album that when I first heard it really knocked me on my butt. I was like, wow, what the hell is this? Because at this point in my career, I'd been in a lot of bands, and I was in a band for a long while, and I was doing a lot of, like, I guess you can call it American style thrash metal, very influenced by like Nevermore and Megadeth and stuff like that, and a lot of those kind of things, really fast stuff, but with melodic singing and stuff like that. And I always loved progressive bands, but I was never really hardcore. I was into my Rush and stuff like that, and Yes, but I didn't really branch out into progressive music at that point. This album was my principal reason for spreading my wings into the progressive world, and from there it was just no turning back. I got every kind of progressive rock record I could find, because this really set my mind on fire with what a band that can play this music and live. I was like, holy shit, like, this is unbelievable to me. And this album came out in '73, was the band's first live album. And before I show you what it is, this album also did one other thing. It made me develop a love of CDs, though, because when I discovered later on that there was stuff missing from this because they were restricted because of vinyl on it, I became annoyed, and I started loving CDs because I could get full shows. I found soundboard recordings, and they always were on CDs, double CDs, because this album was missing a song, and I'll get to it what that is after I show you, that I really grew to love. And I was like, damn it, it's not on here, but this album is still fantastic and is my favorite live album from this band. And I won't keep you in suspense anymore. It's Genesis Live.
Hey.
Now, this album, when I first heard it, I was like, like I said, it just completely knocked me for a loop. Like, just from the opening of Watchers of the Sky, that whole thing, I was like, what the hell is this? And then, Get 'Em Out by Friday, I just, the lyrics in that, I was like, how did he, just the idea of writing lyrics like that in a song was just, it just threw me for a loop. And, The Return of the Giant Hogweed, that's a great song. And then, side two, you have The Musical Box, which is probably one of the most iconic songs in prog history, and then the closing with The Knife, which is such a great song as well. I mean, such great Hammond organ work. This is my original UK first press of this. I was so happy when I found this, because I desperately wanted to find a UK pressing of it. It was my theory that the best versions of records are to get them from the country that the band is from, right? So, and here is my vinyl of it, which I have in my nice little plastic wrap here. And you'll see by the serial number or the catalog number, this is a first, where it says Class 1.
Yeah.
That is a first for this.
Mhm.
There you go.
Just the 2 tracks again. like
Not
Steve
for Dave.
Yeah.
And then their other live album, well, one of their other live albums had Supper's Ready on it, which I believe was a whole side, wasn't it?
Now, here's the thing. Just for all you Dead Wax nerds, in this here, it has inscribed in it Porky, which we all know is a Porky,
Yeah, Porky.
Prime cut. So this one sounds really, really awesome on there. It's really nice and full. And it's funny that you mentioned, David, Supper's Ready, because years later, there's a lot of torrent sites that were on the internet where you could download various, soundboard recordings and stuff. And there was a big, one online where people, like Genesis fans, were always searching for. It was like the Holy Grail soundboard, which was this show, and it did have Supper's Ready on it. And that was omitted from this album version. So everybody was up in arms like, what? There's a version of that? And I have it somewhere amongst my thousands of CDs. I gotta find it. It's killing me that I can't find it because I actually burnt that. And it has everything on there. It has all of Gabriel's in-between banter and all his little stories between it, which is missing from here.
Yeah.
Right? All you have on here is just the giant hogweed. And that's it. That's all he says. Instead of the full stories behind everything, right? Like the croquet story for Musical Box, right? And stuff like that. Again, I listened to this record at the rehearsal studio the very first time. One of my friends had it on CD, and we cranked it in the rehearsal room. And it was just an unbelievable experience to listen to this. And it changed everything for me as far as progressive music. I mean, then I started buying all kinds of King Crimson records, more Yes stuff. I started buying Caravan. I started buying Gong, Camel. My thing became overflowed with stuff. I searched for all the classic stuff. Moon Madness, and all these other great records that came out. I mean, I even have now on my phone a YouTube channel that's devoted to only strictly rare, unheard progressive rock records that were like one and dones kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And there's some amazing albums that people never probably even heard of, and that album is responsible for that. So, and the funny thing is, according to the notes here, Genesis Live is the band's first album to enter the top 10 in the UK, reaching number 9. Following its US release in 1974, it peaked at number 105 in the United States. So it never got really high in the US.
Yeah.
But that happened once, the turn of events with Phil Collins. Once he became, it just changed everything. But when this got reissued in that fantastic reissue box set that came out, I got the CD version of it because the vinyl at that time was really expensive, but I got the CD's version of it, which is fantastic because on that, not only did you have the original version, but they had additional tracks on there from 75, like back in New York City, Fly in a Windshield, Broadway medley of 74, Anyway, and Chamber of 32 Doors were all added to that live album. And again, it's just another great period. It's like the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway era of Genesis. And again, this album to me is what I'll always remember as Genesis at its peak to me, from that era, because I love both versions of Genesis. I love the Peter Gabriel and I love the Phil Collins. To me, Trick of the Tail to me is Genesis' way of saying screw you to Peter Gabriel, because that album is so good. They just turned around and said, we don't need you to be a great band, I think, because I love Trick of the Tail. Everything on that album is just so strong. But again, I don't hate Peter Gabriel. I love him. So for me, both periods are fantastic. And this live album, I'll always tip my hat to because it did everything for me as far as progressive rock music goes.
I was a bit late to the party. I hooked into Genesis on the Then There Were Three album because I really loved things like Follow You, Follow Me, Misunderstand, and what have you. And then I went back because up until that point I hadn't been really interested. I mean, I'd seen pictures of Peter Gabriel dressed up like a geranium, and I thought, "Fuck off." I just wasn't interested because I just thought it was, I just seemed, that put me off. But then, again, they're a great headphone band, I think, if you really want to listen. And so I sort of went backwards, and I do own that album now. So, yeah, nice one.
Yeah, and I'm like David. I didn't get into them probably until they started having hits. I heard them on the radio. Again, it was Phil Collins, and I don't know if my first one was Abacab or whatever the other one was right next to it, before or after. But
that hits in America, you mean then?
Hits in America, yeah.
Probably Duke you were talking about.
Duke. I had that. I think I had Abacab and Duke, both of those.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's all I had. But I thoroughly enjoyed those albums. They're really good. I mean, for what I like, it was good stuff. So, but I haven't heard, that live. That's like totally a mystery to me. I'd never seen that album or the cover.
Really?
I don't remember ever seeing it.
I'm telling you, if you even have a slightest bit of of progressive rock, you'll love this record. It's not too long. I think it's almost a great entry album for progressive rock people. If you want to get into rock, progressive rock, and you're not sure if you'll like it, get this because it's not too long. It's one album, 5 songs, and it's all their greatest, strongest stuff at that time. And if you don't like this stuff, you won't like their back catalog. It's just simple as that.
Yeah, some albums, the live albums, it's interesting that they put out, you get the double albums, but then they do it with a single. They're able to do it, a live set or short set or whatever you want to call it, partial set on a single album, and there's a lot of good ones out there.
Yeah, well, I think that we all picked some really interesting records. I think that what are we at time wise?
Well, we're I can't see. I gotta get my glasses here. An hour and 1 minute, I think. So we're about out of time. But I think what we could do is just do honorable mentions without showing them. Just spout out a couple.
Do a speed round.
Okay, if you want to do a couple honorable mentions there first, David.
Okie dokie. I've got Nocturne by Susie and the Banshees, live at the Royal Albert Hall, 1984. Alive 1, I thought it was too obvious. Kiss Alive 1, it's a cracker.
Yeah.
Even though it's not kind of live, but it's, good. Queen Live Killers, that's a cracker. And another one that is kind of in the vein of, it's not my favourite music, it's the atmosphere, a bit like the Pistols one, but I love the Woodstock soundtrack for some reason, the triple one, because it just takes you there, And The Cure did an amazing one called On Treat. Now, had we had time, and I will just quickly show you this. I was going to say, because again, I was late to the party, but it's because I was working with these guys that I discovered, and I knew about it, but I didn't sort of really get into it. And Mark, you're slightly responsible as well for me really delving into the stuff, but mainly it was when I was working with David Bowie's bunch.
Oh, nice.
So that's
a great album.
That's the Hammersmith 8, and I'm not sorry if it seems I'm showing off, but I just got Tony Visconti and Woody to sign it, just because we were working together, and I thought it'd be a nice one on black, get him a silver pen. But yeah, it's the last final Ziggy thing, and this edition is amazing because it's got inner sleeves, it's on red vinyl, you get a poster with it. But the thing is, like I say, I always liked David Bowie, all the way through the 70s and stuff. I wouldn't say I was a fan, but I loved the Low album, and I loved Lodger. Every time he put a single out and stuff, I thought, oh, that's good, that's really good. But it wasn't until I started playing with Holy Holy, which was Woody Woodmansey's band, the drummer, and then Tony Visconti joined us on bass, and I shifted to rhythm guitar. And obviously, because I had to learn the Man Who Sold the World album and the Ziggy Stardust album and all that sort of stuff. I had to learn it. That's when I put the headphones on and really listened. And I remember, obviously when you're on a tour bus or you're doing stuff with people, you hear so many stories and what have you. And I couldn't believe what Woody was saying, that when David Bowie made that announcement that they were breaking up, that this was the last gig, he didn't know. They did not that he was going to do that. And him and Trevor Bolger and Mick Ronson are sort of kind of looking at each other like, what was that all about? But the track selection on this one is amazing. It's pretty much all my favourites. I love it. Moon Age Daydream and Changes, Space Oddity, Hang On to Yourself, Ziggy. fantastic. So although I was a bit late to the real proper listening party, as it were, to David Bowie, I liked all his stuff on a surface level. This album sums up, and it's because Woody's involved, and and I've heard a lot of stories about this night, and it's quite well documented now on DVD, 5.1 DVD.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's my little quick extra.
Great. I really love that album too. I mean, my love of Bowie is like went sixfold from how it was before. I mean, I have a whole separate like vinyl container of just David Bowie stuff that I have now, right? And that's some of my favorite stuff. And that album is just incredible. I listen to it quite a lot. I don't have the red vinyl. I have just a straight black one. But it's great. And I also bought the Live at the BBC collection that he had, which is some really fantastic stuff. So I think it's a great selection. I mean, a lot of the other ones you mentioned too are great. Alive one is great. The Queen Killers Live is amazing too. I mean, there's nothing that you mentioned that I wouldn't give a thumbs up to and recommend. So great stuff.
Another Tony Visconti album as well. Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Another great one.
The funny thing is, when I first met Tony Visconti, that's the thing that I was excited about, was the fact that he did Thin Lizzy's Black Rose and Live and Dangerous. And of course I was aware that he did the Bolan stuff and Bowie. What have you. When we met, it was he's the Thin Lizzy guy as far as I was concerned. So it opened up, and what I love about it and why I chose that album was because it opened up an entirely new door of really listening to David Bowie and realising what a flaming genius the guy was. Amazing songs.
Fantastic. So great picks there for your speed round. Now, how about we go over to Mr. Keenan for your honorable mention speed round?
I'll just reel off a few real quick. One would be Wings Over America.
Oh yes, I've got that.
Paul McCartney. Yeah, I had that. I bought that way back in the 70s. Great album. I want to say it's 76, 77, somewhere around there. Just a great, because they weren't. He wasn't touring, and then he started to tour with Wings, and that was a huge thing when they did that, and just great, Paul McCartney, Wings music, and a few Beatle tunes too on there. So it's always, of course, you can't go wrong with Beatles tunes. So that's a great one. Sounds great, classic. Another one is I'm going to mention is a single album. Like we mentioned, there's singles and doubles and whatever, triples. But a single is from '82, Blackfoot, Highway Song Live, which was recorded in the UK. The UK liked Blackfoot after they really did like Blackfoot, probably more so than the United States, unfortunately. And you can call them a southern rock band, but if you listen to that, it sounds like a heavy metal. They're like a heavy metal band. I don't care what you say. It's pretty hard stuff, and it's really raw. Yeah, and they just rip through a set. I mean, they just rip through the darn thing. So that's a good one if anyone's looking for some hard southern rock out there. Another one. This is going to sound off the wall, but my mom had bought me, I think it was 77. We were out shopping and she bought me, I knew one of the songs that I knew I liked, but she picked me up Barry Manilow Live. It was a double album. Nice. I know. But hey, that album, Barry Manilow Live, is just a great, ton of great music on there that I hadn't heard before. And just a great set, a great performer on that concert. I mean, the sound of it's just fantastic. But it had has all the hits up to that time, and I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's another one where, like Mark said, he had a double album, but later on the CD came out, a good CD version of it, and it had a couple extra songs that weren't even on that. But it's just. I don't know. I love it. I love it. I'm going back to it every now and then and listen to it.
He's a great songwriter, Barry Manilow. I can't pretend that I'm a fan because you know I was.
It's a different style. It's a different style of music.
He's an amazing songwriter, and I love the fact that the song "I Write the Songs" was not written.
Not written by him. That's the funny thing, right? It was one of the Beach Boys wrote that.
I think so. But no, I mean, this is what I love about this podcast and podcasts like this that you guys do, and I probably will go and listen now. I mean, you got me listening to a Billy Joel album, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, geez.
That's amazing. You know, I'd never have given that the time of day, but you talked so, you know, passionately about it. I thought, well, I'll give it a listen, and I haven't bought it. I just listened to it online, but I enjoyed my headphone listen to that. It was good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, sometimes I think we
get the thoughts.
Kind of, your fans might be like, your friends might say, you know, to listen to this band, it's not cool or whatever. But, you know, once you listen to some stuff with more clear hearing, you might actually like it, right?
Yeah.
So for my quick honorable mentions, I mean, I'm going to mention, obviously, you know, Exit Stage Left is a good one to mention. There's also, there's all kinds of stuff. One that I really enjoy is A Delicate Sound of Thunder and Pulse by Floyd. Both of those ones are fantastic. You know, they've just gotten recent reissues of those now as well. Much to people's surprise, kind of like how Ken mentioned Barry Manilow, I'm going to mention one record that I kind of actually got that I've really been enjoying lately, and that's Elvis Presley live at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Okay. I got a reissue of that double vinyl, and it's really good. I mean, you know, Elvis is going to be part of my blood because of my father. I mean, when I was young, you know, hardly walking, he was listening to Elvis Presley, and he had his guitar out, and he used to always, you know, ho 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 ho, do all his Elvis stuff in the house. So, you know, Elvis Presley is like an old friend kind of thing. So I listen to that every once in a while. But one record that I would have showed if we did three, and I'll just show it really quickly. And this is another one that had a huge impact on me because it's so raw again and so full of mistakes and but it's so great. Is Black Sabbath?
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah. I love this. Love this album, and it's like a train wreck waiting to happen. You know? And this is it's the British master tapes, but it was released on an Irish, I believe, or a Netherlands label. This is those NIMS label releases.
NIMS, yeah.
So and it's really good. It sounds really good. I mean, that's one of the things I did in my research, and this is a good trick for all you collectors of UK stuff. If you're looking for UK pressings, a lot of the times what they did, for example, when labels in Ireland or in other territories in the UK would release, they would get the master tapes from the UK source and just print them, and that's what this is. It's the British source tape, but released on a different country's release, right?
Okay, yeah, that's right. Makes sense.
So it sounds incredible. It's really, really good sounding, and that to me is one of those ones that I used to listen to all the time. And sometimes some of my other more snootier musician friends will kind of look at me and go, "Jesus, like these guys are screwing up left and right." I'm like, "Yeah, who cares?" But like, listen to that vibe, listen to that sound. You know, it was so unhinged, and it was, you know, Ozzy, come on, you know, like I was doing these crazy leapfrogs and everything, you know. That was just a time period that I really enjoyed in Sabbath, you know.
It's an album that splits people, isn't it? I mean, in the UK, we would call that a Marmite album. Now, I don't know whether you know what Marmite is. It's a spread. It's a spread that you put on toast. And, but basically, people, even if you say in the UK, if you say, "Do you want Marmite on that?" they either go, "Oh God, no, jeez, it's horrible," or they go, "Oh yeah, love it. Oh, I'll have some of that." You know, it's so if there's it's a phrase in the UK. If there's something like that album that you either love it or you hate it, we call it a Marmite album. It's
great. Well, I mean, I think that that wraps up a very, very entertaining and good episode. I really enjoyed this one actually because I think we talked about a lot of records that we loved, but also a lot of records that I think each of us weren't too much aware of, and I think have now entered the old coconut now, and maybe we'll want to take a look at further, right? So I thank you guys for that, especially because I have some stuff to listen to again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I could definitely do a part 2. You know, I mean, you could just keep going, couldn't you? You know, it's cracking stuff.
Oh yeah, well, we'll definitely have you back on again. We always have a good time when you're on. I'm sure Ken would agree on that.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
all right, so I think that this will be a good time to wrap this up. So on behalf of myself, Mr. Ken Keenan, Mr. David Donnelly, thank you very much for watching. We'll be back again very soon, and I'm sure David will be back again soon with us as well. You know, schedules pending. We're, you know, all kinds of busy. You know, Ken's busy, I'm busy, Dave's obviously busy with recording and stuff. So once our schedules align, we will get back together again, and we'll talk more about many other things, maybe live records, maybe other kinds of records. But until then, we thank you again for watching. You know, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and leave a like or a comment, and we will respond in due time. So thank you again for watching, and have a good day. Bye for now.
Cheers.